All right, here we go. It's another Saturday morning MLB strategy show brought to you by Stokastic and Prize Picks. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with the one and only Greg Ehrenberg, the most famous graduate of Elon College.
I don't know who the hell else graduated from Elon, but that's almost certainly not true. A couple things that are notable also somebody randomly messaged me on Twitter yesterday. It was like, I didn't realize you graduated from Elon. I said, I didn't realize you did either. I didn't know who, how would I know who this person was? So we went back and forth about it. I don't think he realized that I had no clue who that person actually was either. But yeah, we were talking about alma mater. Where'd you go to college, Emac?
University of Washington, third generation. Of course, I did. This is how important that was. I didn't realize that until it was my senior year. And my dad's like, oh, yeah, when my dad graduated from here, I'm like, wait, your dad graduated from here? I had no idea. Hang on. Let me go take care of my dog. You can warm up the crowd for us here.
All right. I'll go do that. So Emac's second week in a row that we're just about to start. I don't know why his dog waits until right before the show's about to start, because exact same thing last week. We're about to start. We're doing the intro. The dog starts barking. Emac will be back in a second. Look like he's pulling them now. Do us a favor, guys. Like the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got a big main slate to go through in the afternoon. Only, 4 games tonight. So here's what Emac and I are going to do. We're going to go game by game for the bigger slate that locks at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Then we'll do an overview of the later slate afterwards. We'll just talk about our top stacks, top pitchers for that. And that's the game plan for today. Emac, you're back.
Excellent. Yes. My wife just got home, because she does half marathon. So she gets home and barks and makes the dog bark. So there we go. All right. Tyler, what's going on? Tyler's having a crazy day here.
Your mic isn't connected. I don't think.
Wrong mic. Oh, also, your famous notable alum from Elon, the umpire, Joe West, is also one of your, alumna.
So while Emac gets his mic sorted out. Also, Elon Musk spoke at my college when I went to Elon, which I'm almost positive is only because the school's name is Elon. He was Elon Musk. Elon Musk apparently poor now, not able to buy Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. Is he broke? Is he a broke boy now? Is that what happened?
It sounds that way. How's the mic here now, Tyler? Better?
Terrible.
No? All right. I'm coming out and coming back in. Something happened here.
All right. So Emac's still dealing with some tech issues here. The other thing that's Emac, none of these issues existed before. Am I correct in saying that? He was talking before we started and none of this happened. Isn't that right?
Yes, you are 100% correct in that theory, Greg. And now all right, of my scenes are messed up. It's causing me anxiety.
He fucked up the whole show. All the graphics are wrong now. So I'm going to start breaking down the slate. And then whenever Emac comes is when Emac comes, because we can't just meander all day waiting for an old man to figure out how technology works. So the first game we have to talk about today, it is the Los Angeles Angels against the Baltimore Orioles. And a game yesterday, Reed Detmers was on the mound for the Angels. I'd bet the under on his strikeouts. He hits the under on his strikeout prop almost every single start this year. Not yesterday. He looked really good. But it's a better pitcher on the mound today for the Angels. Patrick Sandoval, 23.8% K rate, 4.11 expected ERA. He's taken on the Baltimore Orioles. And at least relative to the price point on Patrick Sandoval, I think he's a pretty solid SP2 option over on DK. Only 7,400 projected for sub 20% ownership. If you look at the slate overall, I don't think there's that many great guys in this pricing tier to get to, which is something I think is just going to kind of lead me to play Patrick Sandoval, because the only other guy that's worth getting to in this price range on DK is Carlos Carrasco, but he's projected for nearly 40% ownership. Emac's here.
All right. Moment of truth. How's the mic? There we go.
There we go. I started breaking down the first game. So where we're at right now is Patrick Sandoval is a solid SP2 option over on DK at 7,400. I like him as a pivot off of Carlos Carrasco from nearly 40% ownership Emac. And then over on FanDuel, where Sandoval's 9,400, that's going to be too steep of a price tag for me. So no interest there. I also think Sandoval is solid enough to where I'm not looking to stack the Orioles against him. So I'll hand the reins back over to you, Emac. Welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here on this fine Saturday. It's raining where I am, but looks like that's not going to be an issue in Baltimore, at least till potentially after this game. So no worries there. The only other weather concern we have is Atlanta. There are storms throughout the morning and into the afternoon. That is where the Nationals are playing today. So it didn't matter if they were going to be here or in Atlanta. They're looking at some rain today. So those are our main weather concerns. With regards to the Halos and the O's here, any thoughts on Dean Kramer? We have a ton of pitching options here on this slate. Actually, even the 9-gamer as well as the 4-game slate tonight. This is kind of, it's not ace day, but it's really good pitcher and really good matchup day.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the guys are aces as well. So on the high end, I do think there's a lot of guys to get to. Once you get to that mid tier, though, I think it's a little lacking. That's why we have Carlos Carrasco. If you've really looked at, like, Carrasco projected for nearly 40% ownership. That's always going to be too much for me. Carlos Carrasco is not the pitcher he once was. But yeah, on the high end, we've got guys like Kyle Wright to consider, Brandon Woodruff, Framber Valdez against the A's. So high end, yeah, lots of guys to get to. The low end, less so. But Dean Kramer is not going to be one of those guys for me. I am not a believer in Dean Kramer. I understand his results this year have been decent, but he doesn't generate strikeouts. The underlying numbers are worse than what the actual ERA is. So only a 17% K rate and a 4.79 expected ERA. You just can't be a guy that is continually going to put the ball in play and just have that be something that leads you to having like a 2 ERA going forward. So Kramer, I think, is heading for some sort of regression. There's a whole bunch of power in the Angels lineup. It's not a team that's crazy under-owned or anything. They're projected for 6% ownership with a 6% top stack odds. So while it seems reasonable to me, I think they're a team to be about even with the field on, but no interest in Dean Kramer.
All right, moving on to our next game here. We've got the Minnesota Twins in Texas taking on the Rangers. You've got Martin Perez deciding to have a career year. He's been in the league about 10 years, and suddenly this is the year everything goes together. Probably looking at some negative regression here, or back to the mean. The strikeouts, not really there, but the ground ball rate has been phenomenal this year, just a 6% launch angle. He's holding fly balls just to 29%. Still gives up a fair amount of hard contact, but a lot of that is just going into the ground or as infield hits, or through the infield, I should say. So it doesn't really get blown up all that well. That said, today is not a day for Minnesota because we don't really see a lot of crooked numbers coming from Martin Perez. I'm not really interested in Perez either. Minnesota, very good offense, just not enough strikeouts. And we have the deluxe version of Martin Perez and Framber Valdez later that we'll be talking about. So this game kind of feels like a stay away from me. I went with the battle of the Grays last night. I chose poorly. So that's not keeping me away from today, but this just doesn't seem like a spot I'm very intrigued in today. The roof should be closed as well there in Arlington. Any thoughts on this one? Anything that you want to excavate from the depths?
This is a very unappealing game from pitcher perspective, offense perspective. It's funny you called Martin Perez. What'd you refer to him as?
Framber Valdez is the deluxe version of Martin Perez.
Okay, yeah, I think that's reasonable. And then you got Devin Smeltzer, who's kind of like the homeless version of Martin Perez because he generates even less strikeouts, but he's also decent, right? 15.5% K rate for Smeltzer, 4.14 expected ERA. And when you look at these two pitchers, they're never guys I really want to play in DFS because Perez has been fairly expensive this year because of the success he's had from a real life standpoint. But the fantasy results haven't shown much upside because he's a sub 20% K rate. And then Devin Smeltzer, kind of the same thing where he's a 15.5% K rate. So these pitchers are both good enough to where I don't want to stack the offenses against them. And both the offenses are picking up some ownership tonight, but there's not enough strikeout upside to consider the pitchers. So I think this game's a total write-off for me.
All right, let's get on to the next game because that'll be the Framber Valdez and the Houston Astros discussion. In the meantime, please do hit that like button. That helps us out. Free content today is MLB ownership projections as well as the MMA fighter rankings. We also have quite a few videos on demand covering some prize pick stuff. I know Greg's got one that is either out or will be out shortly for MMA. There's, of course, the MMA fight tonight coming up after us. There will be a 3 o'clock live before lock. That'll be T. McBee, Terry McBride, and Gundacker. because there is the 9-game essentially main slate at 4:00. And then as Greg mentioned, there's 4 games with 2 at 7:15 and then 2 later in the evening. And then we also today have MMA locking at 6:00 tonight, a pretty big fight card. So there will be MMA live before lock with Jason Floyd and Pete the Heat Rogers at 5:00 up until 6:00. Our next game here, we have, as mentioned, the Astros going against Zach Logue. No K in his name, no K in his game. There's a lot of Zachs pitching today, a few Kyles pitching, a couple Carloses. It's a very no unique names today. It feels like, but you've got the Astros, one of the best teams in the league, going against lefties. They have been for a long time. Even their lefties crush lefties with Tucker and Yordan Alvarez, both well above 200 isolated power the last 2 seasons. So, lots to look at there. From the pitching side, I kind of have Woodruff and Framber Valdez as the top 2. No surprise here. Both of them are 10,000, right around 10,000 or just over on DK and FanDuel. Valdez is actually a little more expensive than Woodruff on FanDuel. So 67% ground ball rate this season for Valdez. His negative 4.7, that is, degree launch angle, a little worse than it was previously. Last year it was just over 5%, but that means everything goes into the ground, which is just a wild phenomenon. The other phenomenon, Greg, he's getting strikeouts this year. That's something that was not particularly anticipated by me, by others, etc. But here we are. He has the 14th best ERA at 2.67, and only once in 16 starts has he allowed more than 3 earned runs. He's kind of your number 1 option today. Do you have anything to besmirch the fine character of Framber Valdez's fantasy portfolio?
No, coming into this year and even at the start of the year, I very seldomly rostered him in DFS because, like you said before, he's always been a guy that's a solid big league pitcher, but kind of in the same vein of like what we've seen from Martin Perez this year, where it's like, hey, he's going to induce a lot of ground balls. He's going to find success. But for fantasy purposes, he would typically score like 15, 16 fantasy points because he didn't generate strikeouts. And that's just not the case this year. He's figured out how to generate more swing and misses. And it's something also that as the season has gone on, we've seen an increase in his K rate. So even at the start of this year, he wasn't a guy who was generating a lot of strikeouts. I'm just pulling up his splits to go month by month in terms of K rate over on FanGraph, because I'm fairly sure off the top of my head that June and July have been his 2 months with the highest K rate so far this year, which yes. So June, he had a 23.3% K rate. So far in July, obviously it's a small sample size, but a 50% K rate for Framber Valdez. But he had a sub 20% K rate in March and April and in May. You saw that go up to the 23.3% mark in June and now taking off again in July. He's got one of the best matchups possible for any starting pitcher. He's going to be popular today, but it is more than warranted in my opinion because the numbers overall for the year, the 3.2 expected ERA for Framber Valdez, the 23% K rate. This is all solid, especially in a matchup against Oakland on the road. But Valdez has also been really good on the road this year. If you look at his splits for the season, not just month by month, but also home versus road. I mean, you take him out of Houston and put him on the road, and he has a 1.69 ERA on the road this year. Also, his underlying number is pretty solid, 3.53 FIP when he's away from Houston. So this is a good spot for Framber Valdez. If you're playing cash games, play him. If you're playing tournaments, also play him. And I don't have really any issue with the ownership either.
All right, let's talk a little Odd Shopper real quick for his strikeout props. So the Odd Shopper is a sister site here of Stokastic. If you guys go on over there, all you have to do is if you just put in your email address, or I sign in via Google. But when you do that, you'll be able to see all of the projections for the player props. That's the only ask. We just ask for your email address. And guess what? I gave Stokastic my email address. I get about 1 email from this a week tops. It's usually giving me an offer of some sort. So just wanted to put that out there. We're not going to spam you with anything, but a little bit of a cost of doing business. We'd like to expand our reach here. But Valdez has a minus 124 on the under 6.5 strikeouts. Osmo has him projected for 5.5. I think that number is okay because getting to 7 is kind of hard. I wish it was a little lower, but we're getting plus money to go on the over there. Is that something that you would consider on what I think is a sort of a break-even number? I think our projections might be a touch low. Not that I would, go against the folks, the good people doing our projections, Greg, but this feels like a decent spot against Oakland. Average strikeouts against lefties for them, but not a lot of power, especially against a pitcher like Valdez. Would you be induced to take the over at plus money?
No, I'm a slave to the numbers. I'm a data boy, Emac. So okay. If our data is showing that the under is a good bet, that's probably the way I lean. I don't know that it means I'm going to bet the under, because it's not like we have a crazy good projection on that and juiced on the under. So I'm not going to be betting the over, but that will certainly not be over because our data indicates the other side is the better play. But I don't think I'm all that inclined to take the under either. So that is going to be a pass for me, but I get where your head's at.
All right, you're 32 of fantasy baseball for me. Just throwing it out there. I sometimes Emac, you got to go with your gut.
Emac has been playing fantasy baseball for more years than I've been on the planet.
There we go. True story. All right. So we've sung the praises of Framber Valdez. You've got Zach here back up from the minors. Let's get to my notes here. He has been, I don't want to say disappointing, but not great. So he went back down into the minors for about 5 starts, and he allowed 10 home runs in 34 innings. Also, 8 of 11 base stealers were successful against him back in the minors. Oakland said, come on back up, kid. We might as well get some on-the-job training here. They're not being very kind in putting him up against the Astros here. Astros should have half a dozen people in the lineup today with at least a 200 ISO against lefties. The bottom half of their order, you could potentially find some differentiation depending if Mauricio Duhon's in the lineup and which of Meyer or Chaz McCormick is in the lineup. I think about 2 out of those 3 are going to be in there. And then Aledmys Diaz was batting second last night, depending on Pena, who was in. He cleared the health and safety protocol, so I don't know if it was like if he had had COVID or just has an illness. So he may get another day off. If he's in, play him, but otherwise do look to Aledmys Diaz. I think he's 3K flat on DK and he's like 2,600 on FanDuel. I think if he's batting second, he's another popular option. What do you like here from the Stros, and can you salvage anything from the Astro or from the Athletics?
Nothing from the A's. We could just pass on them. I'm not going to stack them against Framber Valdez. I'm certainly not going to roster Zach Logue as a pitcher. I don't understand how the Astros are not more popular right now. Maybe this is something that'll change later in the day. So check out Live Before Lock later on when we've got Terry doing that with Gundacker. Last night, the Astros were my favorite stack. They were the team I went with in single entry. On paper, it seemed like it was good results because they scored 8 runs, but not so fast because the 2 chalky offenses on the slate, the Yankees and the Braves, each scored more runs. So I feel like I identified a good team in Houston, but ultimately it didn't matter because the chalk came through in a big way. But this is another good spot for Houston, and they're just oddly not picking up much ownership. So Astros only projected for 7% ownership as a team, with the highest top stack odds on the slate in our projections right now, 13.4% top stack odds. I think this is the number 1 team to get to today. Logue is a pitcher this year, 5.47 ERA, 7.73 expected ERA. In AAA this year, he has a 5.22 ERA and a 7.61 FIP. I don't understand how the Astros are not super popular right now. This is the best team to get to.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. My suspicion is some of the Braves popularity may shift that way if we get more likely chance of rain the closer we get to that game. So that could be the maneuver. We're still far enough out that we don't have the most accurate of radar readings yet, but that's going to be the next game that we talk about here. So as we move along, I do want to remind everybody that in Oakland, that's a 1 o'clock start there. Still only going to be in the mid 60s, not particularly warm in Oakland today. So our next game is Atlanta hosting the Nationals. You've got the disaster that is Pat Corbin on the mound. I believe he was second last year with 37 home runs allowed. He got pretty lucky through the first half of, or I guess the first quarter of the season, but I know we don't like batter versus pitcher stats, but the active Braves have a 376, 421, 492 triple slash line in 156 at bats against Corbin. That's not good. Acuna, Swanson, Riley, d'Arnaud, Contreras, they all have 200 plus ISOs. Matt Olson puts them to shame with the 288 ISO over the last 2 seasons in lefty-lefty matchups. There's a lot to like about Atlanta tonight. And then on the other side, you have Kyle Wright, excellent pitching prospect going against the Nationals, who have sort of a pathetic offense, as I'm wearing my Nationals shirt right now. But they're not anything to be feared. The only thing to fear in this one seems to be Mother Nature. What is your read on this game? Let's just assume it's going to play fine.
Yeah, so pay attention to the weather. It does seem to be at some risk of being canceled, but it's way too early in the day to say. If I was building lines right now, I wouldn't take it out of my player pool, but just keep an eye on this. Flag this game. Make sure you look at the weather. Use the old trusty resource, google.com. If you guys have heard of it, really helpful for looking up what weather reports are going to be. So outside of that, assuming the game plays, the Atlanta Braves are going to end up being really popular today because Patrick Corbin has overall not been good this year. 5.68 ERA, 5.84 expected ERA. We have to pull away one positive from Patrick Corbin. His last couple of starts have been much better. His last 2 outings, which were not in the most difficult matchups ever, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Miami Marlins, he combined to pitch 15 innings and only surrendered 2 earned runs with 16 strikeouts in those games. Also, one thing that I took note of, his velocity was up in the last few starts. But with that said, I don't expect him to find success in this spot. The Braves are going to be popular, a little bit overowned, but nothing that would mean that I have to avoid them because they've got 13% ownership, 11% top stack odds. So I seem to be somewhere even with the field. They're a pretty high priority. And I mean, what else can we say? Patrick Corbin, even if the results have been okay as of late, I don't buy into him because the numbers haven't been good overall for the year. They weren't any good last year. The rest of his contract looks like a total albatross. So good spot for the Braves here. As long as the ownership stays modest, they're a good team to get to.
Here's the wild thing about Corbin. Despite all the home runs last year and the rough outings this year, he still has put up 6 quality starts in his 17 chances. He goes out there and absorbs innings. We'll say that's the silver lining there. If he doesn't have it, he's still going to be out there on the mound serving them up. So the gift that keeps on giving. When it goes south for him, they don't give the quick hook for the Nationals, don't, because I mean it's a fungible asset at this point. Might as well just go with it. The other thing I wish we could bet on is Steven Strasburg being injured. My wife said, "Hey, I heard Strasburg's back," and then went on the injured list the next day. I'm like, thanks when you're pointing that out to one of my favorite teams here. So she's like, "Oh, you knew that was going to happen. He's always hurt." I'm like, look at that. Even she knows that he's always hurt. Yeah. Such a disaster, this pitching staff. But Josiah Gray, keep your eye on him. If he can get his fastball up just a little bit faster or a little bit lower in the zone and faster, he's going to be somebody pretty good. Anything you want to talk about on Kyle Wright here? News God says pretty low chance of rain. Where's that going to put Kyle Wright in your pitching rankings among our many good options?
Yeah, so I think that he's the best contrarian option on the high end today because Kyle Wright's had a really solid year, 2.91 ERA, 3.46 expected ERA. Strikeouts are solid at 25.1%. The matchup against the Nationals, that's been a good one. Juan Soto, as much as he's overall probably one of the best, if not the best hitter in baseball, he has had a down season to this point, and it's pretty easy to work around him too because it's not like there's that much talent around him in this offense. So Kyle Wright, to me, looks like a pretty good option just on paper. And then you go and you look at the ownership, and he's projected for less than 10% ownership today on DK. So when you consider that Brandon Woodruff is projected for 56% ownership, Framber Valdez is projected for 38% ownership, I don't think any of those ownerships are problematic. Like, I think it makes sense that those guys would be that popular. But if you're telling me that this slate plays out 10 times, I don't think Woodruff outscores Kyle Wright in 8 of them, which is currently what the ownership would suggest. So I think that Kyle Wright is going overlooked on this slate, and there aren't that many lower owned pitchers that stand out to me. We're going to talk about another one in a couple of games from now, but Kyle Wright as a pay-up option, I think he's a reasonable way to differentiate.
All right. You know what is a good way to differentiate, especially on these leaderboards? Using the Stokastic tools. And we have a special offer for you, half off. That's right, 50% off of any 1-week package if you use the promo code MLB Strategy Show. That's your first week of any weekly package. You want to do MLB DFS, half off. You want to do NASCAR, half off. You want to get in on what are we on, the open here, or coming up it's going to be the open, you're going to get a nice half off if you want to go with golf, or go with the full package and get half off. 1 week, any package, half off. Pretty good deal there. Promo code MLB Strategy Show. That lets them know that we sent you, that you came in to help us out, because there's apparently a leaderboard amongst the hosts to see who gets to get the most referrals here. And come on, help your old pal out. I'm only on once a week. So proportionally, if we can get a couple of you to sign up, my per show average will be up there. And we can say, shame, Josh Engelman, shame. Watch out for the old guy.
I think Adam Scher, who's the best salesman likely at the entire company, I don't think he's getting enough credit here, because we're looking at Josh has taken victory laps in our Slack chat because it was him and I who were hosting the shows, got recent signups, but some of them are hosted by me, some of them are hosted by Josh. It's getting overlooked by everybody. Adam was the analyst in all of those who doesn't pay attention during the ad reads, but I think that's what's really putting us over the top doing some
that definitely is, because he's got his nose buried into the Stokastic tools. So that's, he's so busy looking at them, he doesn't have time to sell them. So definitely check those out. They help me play in all the sports, and oh boy, do I play in all the sports. A lot of fun there. You look at it this way. Can I change the oil in my car? Yes, I actually can. I grew up way back when they, taught us how to do that. Guess what? I will never change the oil in my car. I will pay somebody else to do it. It's called convenience. Can I do the research and create projections? Yes, I absolutely can. For God's sakes, I'm a CPA. But guess what? Somebody else can do it better. I'll nominally give them a little bit of my cash. I will utilize their services, and then that will save me time. It's all about time versus money. What's the one thing you can't get more of, Greg? Time. Use that money wisely. Get half off. MLB Strategy is the promo code. All righty, Greg, we're on to our next game here. We'll do Tampa Bay and the Reds. Couple of interesting pitching options here. I don't really want to take, and we're going to argue if it's Drew Rasmussen or what do you call him? Rasmussen? I meant to go listen to one of the broadcasts today so I could see how they pronounced him, but I didn't get a chance this morning. So we can each call him by our favorite choice. The other side, you have Hunter Green, very talented strikeout artist, gives up a lot of home runs, a little bit of an issue with walks, but clearly he's going to be a talented option. Feels like going to either one of these guys is a bit of a stretch today in the Great American Ballpark. If I had to go with one, I would probably go with Hunter Green, but Tampa puts out a pretty good lineup with the platoon advantage as they see fit. So this is kind of a not really interested in much from this game. Would it shock you if it's 2-1 like it was yesterday? Maybe a little bit, but not really. Would it shock you if it's 7-6? No, that's the outcome we have in this game. Doesn't feel like one I want to go after, though. What is your assessment on these?
We could call him Rasputin also for anybody who's a history, not necessarily a stand-up guy, Rasputin, but I mean, if we need a middle ground on how to pronounce Drew Rasmussen's name, why not go there? I like him a lot as a pitching prospect, and I'm kind of surprised the results haven't been better this year. 19.8% K rate, 4.45 expected ERA. I do think overall there's just better pitching options to get to on this slate. So I'm not going to really be looking at him as a potential SP2 option. Something else that's kind of concerning when it comes to him is the Rays have been pretty cautious with him in a lot of his starts. So we're not often seeing him work super deep into games. That caps his upside a little bit. So I'm not going to be playing him in DFS today. Although on the other side, when it comes to stacking the Reds, I'm not necessarily looking to stack against him either. We've got 4% ownership going to the Reds. So I don't think I'm going to be playing either side of that game. Does that seem kind of reasonable to you?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm landing on this one as well. And even if you start to look at, maybe some one-offs for power. I mean, Wander Franco would probably be my top choice. Yi-Man Choi, you're giving up a first base slot. There's a lot of good first base options today. We've already mentioned Gurriel. You've got Matt Olson. And we'll talk about a couple more. So it's just, there's not really enough of a stack to put around him in this particular matchup. So this is kind of a stay away game for me. I won't exit out. So if I get some one-offs or a secondary stack, that's fine. But I will cap both these teams probably at like 5%. And if they come in, they come in. If they don't, I'm not going to worry about it. And
then I'm really confused by the ownership of the Rays on the other side, because I get that Hunter Green's been inconsistent this year, but he's one of the best young pitchers we have in baseball, and certainly one of the ones with the most upside. I think he's, barring injury, I would be stunned if Hunter Green is not a top of the rotation starter in the next couple of years. You know, sometimes it goes poorly, sometimes it goes really well for him. But the fact that the Rays are projected for 23% ownership today, they're twice as popular as any other team on tonight's slate. That's crazy to me against Hunter Green. And Hunter Green, who's seen upside in his own right this year, we've seen him in tough matchups go out there and he could pile up strikeouts in a hurry. I don't want to play the Rays when they're projected for nearly a quarter of the field's lineup. So we've got a significant size slate here. A fourth of the field is rostering the Rays. I don't have interest in that kind of ownership. We have them with the second best top stack odds on the slate, but here's just something for reference. The Rays have a 23% ownership share with an 11.2% chance to be the top stack. The Astros, a 13.4% chance to be the top stack with 7.6% ownership. We could play the Astros with better odds of being the highest scoring team on the slate according to our projections with a third of the ownership. So I'd much rather go that direction. And then just because the Rays are so popular, I think this is a really good spot to look at Hunter Green as a contrarian play. 7,800 on DK and projected for 1% ownership. We're also getting some leverage here. That's something that's appealing to me. And then over on FanDuel, he is projected for also 1% ownership at $7,900. Yeah, give me Hunter Green as a contrarian play, and I'm going to fade the Rays and just cross my fingers and hope they don't go off. So I'm hoping this ownership stays what it is because I don't agree with it.
All right, I'm calling it up because I want to look at it on DK here. So it's actually like, damn, their entire lineup is double digits. Led off by Wander Franco. I was thinking it was going to be somewhat of a price play, and I think it kind of is. With Harold Ramirez, 25%, he's at 3,200. Francisco Mejia is at 23%. He's $100 less. You got Yi-Man Choi at 3,700. He's 22%. You got Kevin Kiermaier, prefers to hit his home runs on Sunday, but he's 2,300, even though he'll be batting it likely in the bottom of the order. That's really cheap. Taylor Walls as well. So I think it's probably coming in on price play. So this is kind of a good call out here, Greg. So what I'm also going to do is cut down probably my per percentage by player to about 7% for Tampa Bay, because I don't want a bunch of one-offs as part of this. And then I'm only going to go about 5% on the team stacks. I don't feel great, but I don't really want to get here even at these prices. As you mentioned, depending on who ends up in that Houston lineup, we could get Aledmys Diaz as cheap. We will get Chas McCormick, or who is it, Jake Meyer, or they got a couple other guys that feather in and out. You've got Martin Maldonado, who hit 3-run homer last night. He could be in there for cheap. Those would be the guys I'd rather go to than take a chance against a far more talented pitcher here in Hunter Green.
Yeah, and I'm curious too if maybe this is just based on the weather situation in Atlanta. So maybe this is one of those things where the weather clears up later in the day and we see the Braves be the team with 24% ownership and the Rays ownership share goes down if the weather clears up. Maybe that's what's influencing this. So we'll see. I mean, also all the more reason to sign up for the subscription package using that promo code MLB Strategy Show, because this does seem like something that could potentially change later on the day based on the weather. And as of right now, we're going off the information in front of us, and I don't agree with it.
All righty. I think we've wrung everything out of that game that we can. Last thing to point out, it is going to be 80 degrees with about 70% humidity. So that does bode a little bit better for the offenses there in Cincinnati. Continuing throughout the Midwest here, we are off to Kansas City with the Royals hosting Cleveland in Kauffman Stadium today. It's going to be in the mid to upper 80s. We do have a wind coming in between 7 and 12 miles an hour from center field. We've got Tristan McKenzie and John Heasley on the bump for their respective squads. You've got Josh Naylor, who was a late scratch yesterday. I think he's played once since July 4th, or July 4th was the last time he's played. He's been working through a sore back, so just be cognizant of that. Even if we see him in the lineup, he keeps getting pulled. It doesn't sound like it's back spasms. It sounds like it's back stiffness, which to me seems like a little worse than back. Who knows? Anybody that has had a back injury before knows that they're a pain. I've lucked out and only had one or two in my life, but I have friends that throw their back out all the time. I can't even imagine having to deal with that. And think about, what are you doing in baseball. You're violently swinging a bat or throwing a ball. That it totally involves your back. So that just makes me a little bit nervous there. But we got to like Jose Ramirez, even at his elevated price. You've got to, pair him with Franmil Reyes, who has light tower power for 3,200 on DK to average that stuff down. On the other side, I think you can always look to Bobby Witt, and the MJ Melendez has done a pretty good job as the catching option in the offense with no Sal Perez. But these teams feel to me like it's more of an indiscriminate stack. I don't really care who I get. I think there's going to be offense from both sides. I don't have anybody I want to target. I mean, obviously Jose Ramirez, who doesn't want to play him? He's one of the best hitters in the game, but he's also super duper expensive. So thoughts on this one? And Mike Campbell in chat says that that Naylor did pinch hit last night. So he's close to a return, but all the games go off on this slate within about a 10-minute period. So just be careful. There's not very much we can punt to all. Just put in a later player. You have minutes instead of, the usual half hour.
Well, at the very least, he's probably going to be in the lineup and then get scratched shortly afterwards. Because I think that's what they've done in the last 3 days or something like that, where he's been in the lineup. They just throw him in, and then before the game, they just say like, all right, he can't play, so we're taking him out of the lineup and playing somebody else. But something else to note about Cleveland, number one, great matchup against Jonathan Heasley, because he's not been particularly good this year. We do have the Guardians projected for some ownership at 8%, but oftentimes when Cleveland's popular, all of the ownership is driven by Jose Ramirez. So I don't think 5-man stacks them are going to be all that popular. Heasley with a sub 20% K rate, 5.38 expected ERA. I think this is a pretty good team to get to. So not my favorite stack on the slate. That is going to be the Houston Astros, but Cleveland's up there. They're definitely one of my favorite teams to get to with 8% top stack odds. And like I said, the ownership mostly geared around Jose Ramirez likely once we get to lock. So I think it's a good spot for them. As for the other side, though, I don't really want to play Tristan McKenzie. He's picking up some ownership and has just kind of been mediocre this year, but he's just good enough to where I don't want to stack the Royals against him either. So some interest in the Cleveland offense. Don't like either of the pitchers in this game, and don't like the Royals offense either.
All right, let's continue along here. I'm looking at producer Tyler. I believe we have a Hall of Fame. You want to do that after this next game and get that queued up? Okay, perfect. So let's talk Pittsburgh at Milwaukee. Of course, this series was in Pittsburgh last week, and we are getting the home and home. Back end of the series here. You've got Brandon Woodruff on the mound. He is going to be buying for one of the top pitching options of the day. He missed 5 weeks, had I'm trying to remember, I think it was an ankle issue, and then he ended up
it was a nerve issue in his
hand. I was going to say, then it ended up being numbness
in
his hand somehow. I was reading up on that this morning, and I can't remember there's some syndrome name for it, but essentially he couldn't feel the tips of his fingers. Seems like a bad idea if you're a baseball pitcher and you can't feel the ball.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because he came off funny isn't the right way to describe it, but he came off the injury list. I had no clue what to expect from him, because I'm reading the story, and, I'm not a doctor. You're not. Tyler might be a doctor, but you and I, neither of us are doctors, Emac.
No.
And so I'm reading this story. I'm like, boy, what do we expect from Woodruff when he comes back? Because he's been one of the better pitchers in baseball for the last few years. But if you're a pitcher and you're not able to feel your fingers, that's an issue when it comes to throwing breaking balls, which Woodruff had said himself that it was just something he didn't have a feel for. He had no ability to throw off-speed pitches. So he takes a month off. He comes back. I have no clue what to expect from him. Nobody plays him in DFS his first start back, because why would you with all these concerns around him? He pitches 5 innings against a good Rays team his first start back and strikes out 10 hitters. Be like, okay, he's fine. He's good to go. Follows it up
76 pitches too.
Yeah. And then follows it up in his last start, 6 shutout innings against the Pirates with 8 strikeouts. So also, have you looked at his game log this year?
I've been wrong on him more often than I've been right.
From this standpoint, like 50% of his starts are against the Pirates. He's had the easiest matchups ever. So this is he's pitched back-to-back start. Second time this year he's had back-to-back starts against the Pirates. So he's had very favorable scheduling. He's pitched against the Pirates, 4 starts against the Pirates for Woodruff, and he's made 2 starts against the Reds. He's had a start against the Cubs, a home start against the Nationals. So it's been an easy strength of schedule for Woodruff, but that doesn't change for today. It's another game with a really easy strength of schedule. Going up against the Pirates is one of the worst offenses in baseball. They have called up some of the young prospects, but O'Neal Cruz really hasn't done that much of the plate to this point. I love the tools on him. He's a gigantic, I mean, he's a shortstop the size of Aaron Judge. When he makes contact with the ball, he hits it really hard. But overall, it's just been mediocre results for him to this point. So another good spot for Woodruff. He's the safest pitching option on the slate. He's going to be popular, but just play him, right? Differentiate elsewhere. You roster a team like the Houston Astros, that offense, and that's going to make your lineups different enough, at least according to our current ownership projections. Woodruff is projected for 56% ownership over on DK, 39% ownership at FanDuel. Once again, they'll just play him and try to get different elsewhere.
All right. Targeting against Zach Thompson. Another Zach, another no K in his name, no K in his game. You know, I love saying that, Greg. That tends to bode well for Rowdy Tellez, Colton Wong, etc. You probably see Jace Peterson in the lineup as well to take advantage of his platoon splits here. Where do you put the Milwaukee on our early short list? Because we've already said there's 4 different offensive spots we really like, and we still have 3 games to go.
It's a good contrarian team. They're only projected for 2% ownership, so it's a team to be overweight to the field on. Zach Thompson is not really pitched all that well this year. Like you said, not generating strikeouts, 16.8% K rate, expected ERA north of 5. He lets guys get on base with about a 1.5 whip. So yeah, I think this is a good spot for the Brewers. And like I said, they're not really picking up much ownership. Home park, it's hitter friendly. They also have one of the highest ISOs in baseball against right-hand pitching. So as far as contrarian teams go, if you were to ask me to only roster one offense that's projected for 2% or less ownership, the Brewers would be my choice.
All right. The obligatory pointing out that this is an Ola Bicholas game for Dan Vogelbach, also known as the Remember Me game. All right. A little bit of the Stokastic Hall of Fame here. Hopefully producer Tyler didn't forget that he was going to put this screen up, but we've got go to stokastic.com/avatar. You can download the Stokastic avatar. You can tweet your wins to Stokastic HOF, and you can also get a chance to win a free month of Stokastic Platinum. It's a good one. Finished top 3, no ties, top 3 in any contest with at least 5,000 players. You can share that with us, and we will take care of getting you your free Stokastic month. All right. First winner today. You know him. I know him. He likes baseball. He likes Prize Picks. It's Eric Lindquist dropping a nice power play on Prize Picks. 100, got 4 questions right. All 4 right, turned it into $1,000. Very impressive. You've got our next one here. Ken DiBattista put up a $250. We like to see that ROI. That looks like I don't recognize the names of those drivers. I'm guessing it's Formula One.
It is Formula One.
Laffy likes to call it, what does he call FS1?
FS1 Racing. Is it on FS1 also? Who's the site? Nobody
ESPN.
knows.
ESPN.
I was ESPN or whatever the motor channel is would be where I would suspect. But that's a nice little run there. You've got Dan Williams here, had a nice hit in the wiffle ball, got first out of 133,000 for 5 cents, turned it into $300. That is some ROI. That's near and dear after my heart. I am the last of the big spenders. Of course, you've got Wayne Staneker here, and he has done a nice little run there in the turbo slates are fun. We also have the evening late night Osmo stats package. If you are on a budget and get home from work late and just want to have a little bit of fun, you can test that out. Check that on the Stokastic /join page. And then next we've got Rich Green, $37,000 for MMA. Very impressive. Tune into the MMA show this afternoon at 5:00. You'll get to see Pete the Heat and Jason Floyd breaking down MMA. He gets a shout out, or they get a shout out from Rich Green there. And then you've got Who is John Galt? He has a nice, played one lineup and it did him well. Took a bunch of firsts across the board. Another nice ROI night. Like to see those. That was even with Johnny Cueto, 9.5 points. 9.5 points. Johnny Cueto, I was kind of sad he wasn't on our big slate here, Greg, because I wanted to say horrible things about him and the potential deal with the devil that he has managed to sign at 36. Just his funky delivery is somehow still getting it done. I'm still not sure how that works, but he's only made like what 40 starts over the last 5 seasons because all of his injuries that he's had. Poor guy.
Well, it's not just injuries, but he generally sucks and teams don't want to play him more. Like he got his ass kicked at AAA this year, but he's luck boxing his way into some decent big league starts. You know who is not working for anymore? Nestor Cortez, who was trying to be the reincarnate of Johnny Cueto, got off to a great start, and he just gets his ass kicked every night he goes out there and pitches. Got off to a crazy good start this year. I think at one point he was third in the AL Cy Young odds, but last night, once again, Nestor Cortez got hit hard. So it's going to come for Johnny Cueto at some point too. He's this nonsense, this magic will not keep up much longer.
No, but it is wild. The best at pitching with the most herky-jerky motion of all time, Fernando Valenzuela. If you guys ever look him up on YouTube, it'll be very grainy because it's the late 70s, early 80s. But I swear to God, when he started out, half the time he wasn't even looking at the batter when he started his motion.
If anyone in chat has ever played MLB The Show, you will testify to that statement. You don't know where the ball is coming from, honestly. It's the most annoying thing in the world.
You know who also is like that on the show? And I think the last one I played was like 2017 or something. It's been a minute, but Juan Marichal was another one. He does this like weird. He's like helicoptering his arm around, or like that doesn't seem like a good way to pitch. But yeah, they got those old school pitchers with the weird deliveries, and I guess there was no pitching coaches back then. It was like, how do you get ready for the game? You eat a few hot dogs, you drink a few beers, you go out, you see what happens.
So one of my friends, his dad played fast pitch softball. He could throw with either hand. So he basically put the ball behind us and just come out one way or the other. And he had this weird wind-up thing where you couldn't tell for sure where the ball was. So yes, always fun. But let's get back to our slate here. We've got 2 more left on our 9-game afternoon slate, then we'll hit on the 4 games on the late slate. Reining us back in, we've got a pair of lefties going squaring off here in Arizona. The roof will be closed in Chase Field today. You've got Kyle Freeland, actually been okay with the strikeouts, getting around 5 per game. That's nice to see. Pitched much better away from Coors Field. That should be no surprise. You've got Madison Bumgarner. Yeah, I think he's toast. Most people think he's toast. T. McBee, if you tune in later, he'll sing the praises of Madison Bumgarner. There's plenty of other pitchers on the slate today. If he's an SP2, I have no problem. I'd actually kind of like to get some Kyle Freeland as an SP2. How are you feeling about the pitchers and then any hitters you want to call out specifically here?
Yeah, I'll be fading the pitchers in this spot. Madison Bumgarner and Kyle Freeland, neither of them really move me much. 2 low strikeout guys. 16.5% K rate for Madison Bumgarner with a 4.82 expected ERA. And then Kyle Freeland, I understand his numbers are a little inflated because he has to make half his starts at Coors Field, but still 15.8% K rate, 4.98 expected ERA. Neither of these pitchers are good from a real life perspective. Freeland probably a little bit better at this point in his career than Bumgarner, but also at the same time, they don't generate very many strikeouts, which makes it really hard to consider them for DFS purposes. I don't know what the hell the deal is with Arizona, but everybody wants to roster them every single day, it seems like now. And I get it. Like the spot against Kyle Freeland isn't bad, but you're telling me that they're going to be in 15% of the field's lineups on a decent sized slate. No, thank you. So Arizona, I'm going to be taking them out of my player pool just because the ownership is so crazy high to me. But it's not enough leverage for me to just want to blindly go to Kyle Freeland. If I'm picking an offense in this game, I'd rather go to the Rockies against Madison Bumgarner because I think the Rockies offense is better against left-handed pitching than Arizona's offense is against left-handed pitching. I also think that Kyle Freeland is better than Madison Bumgarner. And then one final point on this also, the Rockies are picking up 1/5 of the ownership of Arizona. So the preferred offense for me in this spot is going to be the Rockies side.
All right. Because it's the MLB strategy show, because we have those 2 basically $10,000 pitchers that we're going to be looking to. This is clearly on DK anyway, driving the popularity for Arizona, who have 4 of their top 6 hitters, all righties, that are under $3,000. And similarly to what we saw with the low 3,000s on the Tampa Bay Rays. So that's probably artificially boosting these guys. It's still now. You and Lindquist had an interesting discussion last night. I sided with you. I saw his point, but he was saying the Connor Siebold, if he has a decent start, it's going to take out so many of the Yankees. I'm okay doing that on the small slates. I don't like doing it on the big slates because there's just too many other good pitchers that are out there. But that's kind of why I'm okay with Freeland, but I don't think Freeland has the total shutdown upside. I think when you're doing that, you got to have somebody that's going to get 7-8 strikeouts and can go 6 scoreless innings. And I just don't see that in Hunter Green going against Tampa Bay or Freeland going against Arizona.
Hunter Green, I think, can. If Hunter Green finds success,
but you could also see him give up 3 home runs too.
Yeah, if Hunter Green finds success, it's going to be strikeout. So if you're just looking to roster a pitcher for leverage purposes, if Hunter Green finds success today, he's going to strike out 8, 9, 10 hitters. Kyle Freeland could just BABIP his way into a decent start against a poor Arizona offense. So I don't want to play Freeland. The leverage point to me, I mean, I'm going to get exposure to Hunter Green today, but the Freeland is a no-go.
Okay. And then Blitz was asking how much percentage for Bumgarner. He's 3.1% right now on DK. So really just probably not going to end up in most of our lineups. The bottom, like on a slate like today, like the bottom 10 pitchers, I'll have all of them set at like 3 or 5%. It's unlikely I'll get any of them because I'll have the pitchers I really like, and then a couple that I'm neutral on. Those all have about 220% of ownership. So unless there's, the randomness really kicks in or whatever other lineup constraints or stack constraints I have kick in, I usually don't get some of those lower end or less popular options. Although I forget which 2 I forced in last night that didn't work out. So yeah, it happens. You ready for the last game of our afternoon slate here?
Let's do it.
Braxton Garrett, the lefty, going against the New York Metropolitans. They have a 4.7 implied run total here. That kind of has me saying, I'm not really excited about Garrett. It's going to be in the mid 80s in Citi Field. This will be a 4:00 start. You've got a little bit of a crosswind there, so nothing that should really do a whole lot. Carlos Carrasco on the other side, somewhat interesting at 7,500. He's a 3.5 starter this year. That's kind of like what we're getting from him. He definitely deserves to be a pitcher, but the results are all over the board. He's kind of like in that sort of Taiwan Walker type mold. It's like, these guys are just, they're starters. They can have good ones. They can have bad ones. They're just kind of there. At 7,500 on DK, that means he's going to come in as an SP2. I'm not thrilled about it because Miami is actually, I guess, above average against righties more often than not.
They've gotten worse as the season's gone on. The real issue with Carlos Carrasco, I like the price tag on DraftKings. I think the matchup's decent enough. It's just too much ownership because we've got 3 major chalk pitchers on DK today. Brandon Woodruff, warranted. Framber Valdez, warranted. Carlos Carrasco, not for the ownership, not at 37%. I'd rather play Framber Valdez at 38% against the A's than Carlos Carrasco at 37% against the Marlins. And so Carrasco, to me, if this ownership was to hold and I was to run 150 launch, I'd probably end up coming in like 15% Carrasco or something like that. I'd be somewhere around half to a third of what the field is at on him. And the pivot to me, going back to the first game on the slate when Emac was dealing with some mic issues, I'd rather play Patrick Sandoval at 18% ownership than Carlos Carrasco at 37%. So that to me is the pivot to make, getting to Patrick Sandoval in large field tournaments a little bit more than Carrasco. Once again, it's not that I think this is a bad spot for Carrasco, just too popular.
Carrasco's also allowed home runs in each of his last 5 games, 2 of them multi-home run games. So it is what it is with him. The Mets, though, somewhat intriguing here. 4.7 implied run total for them. You get lefty specialist Mark Canha should be in the lineup somewhere around 5th or 6th. You should get Starling Marte nestled in there in the 2-hole. 6,300 today on DraftKings. Are they playing this in the neutral site of Coors Field? What the hell is going on with that? 6,300. That's like a pitcher. Almost there for Marte. Lindor, always good. Pete Alonso, enormous power. Do you like the Mets as a potential single game stack? Single entry stack.
Yeah. So not really. And the main reason why, first, Garrett's been kind of decent this year, 3.87 ERA, 20% K rate, but also the Mets are so expensive. And I do think we kind of want to prioritize those expensive pitchers today. An opportunity cost of rostering a team like the Mets is going to be hard to pay up for those pitchers. So the Mets are a team that I don't really like getting to. They're not going to be popular or anything, but I don't think they should be just because they are so expensive. And the matchup isn't ideal against Braxton Garrett. The Mets have a good offense, a very good offense, in fact, so they could hit any pitcher, but there's better spots to get to on this slate when the price tags are considered.
All right. We're going to talk about the main slate, the featured slate, the 4:00 The 4 games at 7 o'clock. We just got done with the 4 o'clock slate with the 9 games there. A little bit about Prize Picks here. They are the sponsor of the show. They are a daily prop-based contest site. You can use the promo code AWESEMO. Yes, we are Stokastic, but it is promo code AWESEMO there. They will match you up to your first $100 on your initial deposit. You put in 50, they give you 50. You put in 100, they give you 100. You put in 200, they give you 100 because it caps out at 100. But that money comes out of your account first. I enjoy playing Prize Picks a lot. It is a tremendous amount of fun for me. I actually like it better than the sports wagering sites because I like to pick the unders on pitches thrown and the unders on fantasy points for pitchers. That's a lot of fun, and we don't get to do that on the sports books. So no sharks, no optimizers, no mass multi-entry. It is you against their props. You can build up to 5 question lineups that can get you up to 10x your entry fee. It is a lot of fun. You can do cross-sport bets. You can do same game bets. The only rules are you have to have players from 2 different teams, and you can't use a player more than once. You can actually use them twice, though, if they're part of the home run groups. But that also is a lot of fun. You get a little extra synergy there. Do you have any Prize Picks or other props that you are looking at tonight, Craig?
So I know I will be after we're done with this because Tyler and I are going to be recording a little bit of MLB betting video. So for today, there are a couple home run props that stand out over at Odd Shopper. But the one thing that I think stands above all else, Kyle Wright is plus money for over 4.5 strikeouts. You and I both liked him as a contrarian pitching option today. Low strikeout prop for Kyle Wright has had a solid year and is in a good matchup against the Washington Nationals. So as of right now, that is my favorite bet of the day. Kyle Wright plus money on over 4.5 strikeouts.
All right. That is a good one there. I like the Giants and Padres. We'll talk about them, but they got a couple good pitchers going tonight. Darvish, yeah, he's on the downslope of his career, but he's still pretty darn good. And then you've got Carlos Rodon. You have half over under of 1/2. So is a first inning run going to be scored? Yes or no? I actually like the under on that one. You can check out the free article that's on the homepage now. Eton does a bunch of those for yes or no first inning runs. He actually liked the no on that one. He had solid reasoning for it. I just think these pitchers are pretty good. So I'm on the other side. It's a minus 120. Wager was for the over, so he was looking at that one. Anything on the fantasy points for pitchers that you like?
I'd have to look through. So Prize Picks, I can't play on Prize Picks in New Jersey. So when I have to do my MMA video, I dive pretty deep into Prize Picks and look at all the props there. For MLB though, I generally look more for me at just the general betting numbers that is unless that we're sponsored by Prize Picks, then I look into it a little bit more. But let's see, what do we have up on the board? Scoring, by the way, if you guys aren't familiar with it, is the same as FanDuel scoring.
Yep. So it's FanDuel for pitching and it's DraftKings for hitting. Closer to DraftKings for hitting. It's not exact, but you'll see Johnny Cueto at 32.5. I like the under on that one. Even this is the irresistible force and the immovable object. The contract with the devil versus the worst offense almost known to man here. I'm betting against Johnny Cueto. I take the under of 32.5.
So I'm going to make a point here related to some of the Prize Picks props here, and it's going to go back to a talking point that we just had a second ago. The over-under for fantasy points on Carlos Carrasco is 35.5. It's 34.5 for Patrick Sandoval. So just before when I was talking about Sandoval being a pivot off of Carrasco, we have them projected really similarly in our model today. They have the same over-under almost over on Prize Picks, only a point differentiating Carlos Carrasco and Patrick Sandoval. Even more reason to think that Carrasco shouldn't be massively more popular than what Sandoval is.
All right. Brandon Woodruff is at 42.5. That's a pretty lofty point total there. A lot of times I'll stay away from those when they get that high, but it is one way you can sort of hedge against your DFS lineups if you want to take the under on something like that. I wouldn't do it all the time, but that would be one if I'm trying to find a fifth one or fourth one for my 4 or 5 question cards. I would go that route. The other one I'm kind of interested in is Robbie Ray. So we'll kind of start moving over to the night slate here. Robbie Ray, the strikeouts. I believe we had him at 6.5 was the line this morning. So let me see what that has changed for that. I've been trying to follow the Greg Ehrenberg strategy of looking at the lines early because you can get them somewhat favorable. So I liked the under, and it was plus money earlier. That has changed. So it's at 6.5. Right now, which I think is okay. Austin was projecting Robbie Ray for 6.7. He has a ton of strikeouts. I think he's something like 111 on the season. He's got like the third most strikeouts in the league. But if you go into his starts, in his 17 starts, he has had 6 or fewer strikeouts in 9 of them. So he's coming off a massive, I think he had double-digit strikeouts, I believe, in his last game. He's going against Toronto tonight. Toronto, tough matchup, even for the reigning Cy Young, American League Cy Young Award winner here. A lot can go wrong, and seeing him at 6 strikeouts or lower, I think is totally possible. I like that better when the money was going the other direction. It looks like it may have been bet down a little bit since I wrote up my blurb this morning, but that was one I liked. When you look, so pivoting just real quick, and then we can wrap up the main slate. When you look at the early props, a lot of times you'll go in earlier before even our stats have been run, our projections have been run, because that's usually things around between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. are not really firmed up yet on the sites and across the different sports books. And that's where you can look at Odd Shopper and see the different money or, the plus minus the big. It usually hasn't consolidated as much as it will later in the day. What is it that stands out that you look for in these when you don't have that helpful stochastic projection sitting right next to the prop?
So could you what's the
summarizing the question? When you're looking at early morning props and we don't have the handy stochastic projections yet because we haven't run them, we usually run them around 10 o'clock. What is it that you look for for the props? Because a lot of times you'll say, "Oh, I found a good number on this." What is it that you look for? Is it just the plus or minus money hasn't coalesced yet, or is it the actual prop that you think is off?
Yeah. So when I say early, if you're betting lines at 10 a.m., like they haven't moved that much at that point. A lot of people are waiting to right before the game starts to bet. I'm not saying you have to bet these things at 5 a.m. or whatever, which I know for
some of us are up. Some of us are
for you, 10 a.m. is probably like midday some point.
I'm ready for a nap by 10 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're just betting them when the projections come out, or even around noon where we've had the projection out for a couple hours, that's all, like, that's cool. It's where I think that you're not getting the best numbers if you're waiting until an hour before lock. If you're doing it 5-6 hours ahead of time, you're fine. And you don't have to be up at 6 a.m. looking for the lines as soon as they launch.
All right. So you're saying I should probably do work instead of surf the internet?
No. You should never do that. I would never recommend such things. Never, ever. I'm just saying you don't have to bet your props or your prize picks lines the second you get up in the morning.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Our second main slate of the day, the 4-gamer, 2 games at 7:15 and then 2 at 10. At 10, of course, this is the Fox baseball featured games. You've got the Yankees at the Red Sox, Jordan Montgomery going against Cutter Crawford. Tough ask here for Crawford against the Yankees. So don't really like either of those pitchers. I like most of the other pitchers, though. You got Carlos Rodon, you got Yu Darvish. They're squaring off. You've got Clayton Kershaw. It's going to be a little bit, I guess, normal LA temperatures. It's going to be around 80, but that's still no great hitting weather per se. I like him going against the Cubs. And then you've got, we mentioned Robbie Ray, but you got Alek Manoah on the other side there going against the Mariners. I think Manoah is kind of interesting. Because you've got the Mariners who are without Jesse Winker, who is serving his suspension. You've got Ty France. I believe he played last night. He came back from, I can't remember if he was on the suspension list or the injured list, but he should be back. But then we're looking at the Eugenio Suarez and Julio Rodriguez. That's really the only fierce bats there. So I do like Alek Manoah. What do you like from the pitching perspective here for our 4-gamer?
Yeah, so if you look at the pitching options, pretty solid for tonight. And the pricing's terrible on DraftKings. These salaries are so cheap now. The only one who I think is kind of priced appropriately is Robbie Ray at 9,700. That's that's a pretty expensive price tag for him against his old team, the Toronto Blue Jays. Other than that, we've got Rodon at 8,400. That makes no sense. He's been lights out this year. Clayton Kershaw at home against the Cubs, 8,500. Like, what the hell is that? Same with Yu Darvish at 7,900. So there's a lot of good pitchers to like today. And then at the bottom end of the pitching tier, it's, Jordan Montgomery, who even him at 6,500, I don't think it's a bad source of salary savings. Cutter Crawford, that's a no for me. Marcus Stroman's a no. It's pretty hard to not like Rodon and Kershaw as the top two overall pitchers. They're priced just incorrectly over on DK. So that's the way that I would be looking to go most often at pitcher. If you need to differentiate, I don't think Robbie Ray paying up to be contrarian is the end of the world, though I do prefer the Toronto side of that game as far as offense go. We'll talk about that in a second. And then for the FanDuel night slate, where's the FanDuel night slate? FanDuel broke all theirs up, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, sometimes they don't post that late one until the 4:00 one's done when they're making that their main slate on Saturday because, FanDuel.
Yeah. When I looked this morning, it hadn't been posted yet. So, it is now. Okay. So we now have the games. Robbie Ray 10-9, Rodon 10-6, Darvish 10-2. So yeah, to me, the best pitching option on FanDuel, Kershaw is 9,800, whereas Darvish, Manoah, Rodon, and Ray are all more expensive. So Kershaw would be my favorite pitching option on FanDuel.
All right. Ty France, sorry, it was not actually, I couldn't remember who was suspended from part of that baseball in Anaheim. He'd actually just come back from the injured list, grade 2 flexor strain in his left elbow. So he did go 1 for 4 last night. It looks like, I think I've now closed that page out. So yeah, we'll give him a hit. There we go. BK 407, today is the day for you. I am decreeing it. It is the day for you. Think positive. Think positive. Any positive thoughts that you have as we wrap up our show this morning, Greg?
Stacks for the night slate. And for me, the team I want to get to the most, I guess kind of by default, is the Blue Jays, because the stacking options are really not great for the night slate because of how good the pitching options are. And then when you get to the bottom tier of the lesser pitchers, I mean, the Yankees are going to be in a third of the field's lineups against Cutter Crawford. So I generally don't really like to roster the most chalky offenses on the slate. Every once in a while, the chalk is warranted in our projections. The Yankees, though, we have them with 31% ownership, 25% chance to be a top stack. They're a little bit too popular. The Dodgers are overowned. So Robbie Ray is a pitcher who's very high variance, especially this year. Sometimes he's going to come out. He's going to have his strikeout stuff. He's going to look really good. Other times, he's going to give up a whole bunch of hard contact. He hasn't been as good this year as he was last year, not even close. So the Toronto Blue Jays, their offense has struggled in a lot of positive matchups as of late. Maybe in a more difficult matchup, the Blue Jays offense will get going. But the numbers do seem to indicate that the Blue Jays are the most under-owned team on the slate of the offenses that are actually good today. So Toronto, that would be my favorite tournament stack as of right now, given the data we have.
With that, we are going to get on out of here, gamers. We do have the live before lock for the 4:00 slate coming up at 3:00. That will be with T. McBee, Terry McBride, along with Gundacker. And then at 5:00, you get MMA live before lock. Tomorrow, we will have the MLB live before lock. And there's also NASCAR live before lock for you Sunday gearheads. But with that, thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring the show. You can follow us on Twitter at Stokastic_COM. I am at Emac DFS, and it is G Ehrenberg DFS. With that, gamers, good luck.